Hello and welcome. I am here with Ben Escobedo from Shure. Hey Ben, how you doing?
I'm good, Peter. How are you?
I'm all right. That is a cool collection of guitars you have in the back.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
I'm really excited to have you here. Thank you for coming. We are here to, I think the excuse for us to get together was, basically Wireless Workbench 7, new features of Wireless Workbench 7, and we want to talk about that, and we'll show that, and we'll do a brief overview. But, I kind of want us to feel like this episode is a little bit like an onion. So we'll start with Wireless Workbench 7 and, the new features. And then we will kind of expand out because this is a Gotham Sound Labs episode. And so we have a couple of things we want to show. One, I don't know if people know that Wireless Workbench 7 can control the ADX5Ds. I don't know if that's well publicized. So we're going to show how to do that. And then we're going to expand the onion a little bit further, and we're going to show how Wireless Workbench 7 can remote control a Shure setup from hundreds of miles away. Let's just say 150 miles away. Is that about right, Ben?
Well, as the eagle flies, I think it's about 70 or
70.
so.
All right. Well,
Yeah, not
far
too
enough.
bad. Yeah, far enough.
First of all, what is Wireless Workbench?
Sure. So, for those unfamiliar, Wireless Workbench is a software offered by Shure. It's completely free and no charge, and it allows you to command and monitor and frequency coordinate your Shure wireless microphones, as well as microphones from other manufacturers. So, in essence, you can use it offline with no devices connected to make a frequency plan for your gig or your event. And if you do have Shure devices directly connected through the network, you can do really cool things like control all the receivers. And if you're into the Axiom Digital Show Link system, you can actually remote control your transmitters when they're on the talent. I think that's a really cool time-saving feature. And once people get a taste of that kind of remote control thing, and you don't have to bother the talent, you don't have to sync your transmitters every time via infrared. It's quite cool.
Yeah, if you've never used Wireless Workbench 7, how much does it cost?
That's $0. It's for the low price of free. We are not charging for Wireless Workbench 7 at this time.
And I want to hammer this home. Is it limited only to Shure wireless products?
Well, yeah, it's limited to shared wireless as far as control and direct if you want to change parameters on the unit. However, say you have a mixed bag of wireless. While we would prefer you to have all Shure devices, we know in reality you might have some from various other manufacturers. And we go to great efforts to put those profiles for other manufacturers' wireless in Wireless Workbench. So you can make a coordination with Shure products and others. You just can't push a button and deploy it to those other products because of the API is a little different than ours.
Copy that. And so Wireless Workbench 7,
Really excited about it. It offers two really new features that people have been asking for. The first one is pretty simple. It's dark mode. So the program itself now offers a nice, easy on the eyes grayscale dark mode, as you can see here, with the Shure lime green selection and that sort of thing. This has been asked for a long time, and we're pleased to support it. At this time, this is how it looks. This is the only option. So you're behind the console or behind the computer on a dark stage or something. It's not gonna blind you. So I'm excited about that. That's really great. And then the second new feature, which is really kind of a cool thing, and I know Gotham and others have been doing this kind of in a while, but it's we call it the scan library. And what you can do, if you want to, is you can upload scans that you've taken with Wireless Workbench into the cloud, and you can share those scans with others. So the power of this feature is that if you're going to a venue and you're a traveling act, or you're doing sound work, or maybe you're got a tour with you, you can see what it's going to be like in the next venue. And if somebody's already been there and uploaded a scan, you can kind of make plans and do your frequency coordination armed with that information, the information that's baked into Workbench by itself, the information that Workbench can grab from the FCC automatically. And you can make great decisions about, hey, what range of equipment should I bring if I'm dealing with different ranges of ears, for example, or I could get my coordination 95% of the way there. And when I get there, of course, I'll still do a scan, but I'll be better prepared to know, what I'm up against or how many channels am I going to be able to get on the air.
So we have a whole bunch of Shure equipment on our end. We have two ADX5Ds. We have a Spectrum Manager. We have an AD4Q. This is sort of the front view of the gear. I wanted to show that it's all running on DC, including the switch. The battery charger is not running on DC just because. And we also have over here the access point, the AD610. So that's sort of the gear that Wireless Workbench is controlling in our studio via VPN.
You should be able to, from the comfort of your own computer, go Tools, Scan Library, and it'll bring up a login page where you can register. It's free, and you can put in your email and Shure kind of ecosystem password. Once you're in there, you get a map, very much like Google Maps. And this is the entire world, of course, we're looking at. Just like Google Maps, I can zoom in and move around, and I can see that every one of these points is an area where there's been a scan or multiple scans created. As expected, we're going to see the major metro areas first, but there are a couple out in the middle of nowhere in Canada and others, and we appreciate our rep force and early beta testers checking this out. Let's go into New York because that's where Gotham is based out of, and we're kind of see a few things directly in Manhattan and the surrounding areas. If you're curious about what something looks like, you can just click on the marker, and it'll bring up a blown up view of exactly where that is, what the time was here on the left, what the name of the file is. If you click on the file name, it'll bring up a thumbnail of what the scan just looks like. Now, this is just for a quick kind of instant gratification view of what you're up against for frequencies. And this is classic New York City kind of scan data here. I think the real, the powerful feature, though, is that if you just want to, you can download the scan as the file, an SDB3 file, and then you can use that inside of Workbench to do your frequency coordination as if you were there, like as if you took that scan yourself. Additionally, we have there's some metadata that is wrapped up with the file that we encourage users to do, and it'll tell you what type of antennas. Like this one was a UA860. It's an Omni. They're using the UA825 antenna cables. Some notes that you can put in there if you're using an antenna distro and the distro model. So you can get a little bit of an idea of, hey, was this done with a specific type of antenna or just whips or all of the above? But you are able to download the scan and upload if you want. So it's an kind of like an opt-in thing. If you want to upload and share it, you can do that. Additionally, if you want to make it private and only upload to the cloud and make it private, you can do that as well. So I think this is going to be a very welcome feature, especially for those that travel around a lot to different sets, to different venues, to different arenas. And, as the community starts uploading more scans, we can start to see more of a pattern, and you'll be able to always check the timestamp to see how recent the data was, because it's an ever-evolving, ever-changing thing. And, RF is, you can kind of get a good grasp on it even from these scans, but it's not always going to be the same. So the latest data, and of course, nothing beats being there and actually doing the scan, but this is really the next best thing that you can do.
I think it's an amazing tool. I mean, I really, the idea of a community database that we can all help each other with is really fantastic, and the fact that it's open really makes it. I think it's incredibly special, and I really appreciate that Shure has taken the effort to do that.
Thank you. Yeah, we're really excited about it. We've been working on this for quite a while, and we've had great support from the beta test and the communities to help us get these scans uploaded. We've been showing this at the last couple of trade shows. We just had Infocom in Vegas, and of course, Wireless Workbench just dropped this week, like 3 days ago. So if you haven't grabbed it or the new version, please do. You can still use 6 if you're comfortable with 6, although the workflow, which we'll show you, is largely the same. The only stipulation is that you can't run 6 and 7 at the same time on the same computer. So you can have them both installed. You just can't have them both open to communicate with a device's API. You can't have a Workbench 6 computer and a Workbench 7 computer, a separate computer on the same network, and that's fine. Actually, as I think most know, you can have just about as many Workbench instances on the same network as you'd like. And then we'll dive more into the cool stuff we're doing here. Like as Peter mentioned, I'm like about 70 miles away, and I'm VPN'd into Gotham Sound right now, and I'm controlling and seeing their devices from my computer, and I have complete command and control over the whole thing. So let's go back over to the Workbench itself, and I can show you what we're talking about. Peter mentioned that the devices that we have a quad on the bench. There's an ADX1 transmitter, and if it has an X in the part number, it means it has the Shure remote control. And then we have an ADX5D. Actually, it looks like two ADX5Ds there that are also on the network. I know I have control because I see the IPs and I see the green bar on the left. But if I press the identify device, I can make that quad blink, as you see on the screen. So I have complete command and control over this. And additionally, because of the Shure, the AD610, the little access point, I have control of that ADX1. I can do just about anything I want on that ADX1 right from here, from many, many miles away. So this is all really cool stuff. The last thing before I show you about the networking portion is the AD600 Spectrum Manager is also online, and that is the kind of the scanning tool, the real-time scanning tool, as well as a backup frequency server if you are using our automatic interference detection and avoidance. Everybody kind of calls it frequency hopping, but that's the Axiom famous feature where if you want to set it up that way, you can have it automatically go to new frequencies of your choosing if there is ever an event or a frequency event. So to circle back, we talked a little bit about ADX5D, the little portable 2-channel slot receiver or bag receiver. That can be operated in two different network modes. The first one is direct, which most users know about. It has a built-in remote control access point. So the transmitters that you sync up to each channel can be remotely controlled right from the ADX5D. So if you make a change on the receiver, you do a new frequency, for example, you can change that. If you want to change the power of the level of the transmitter or turn the locks on, you can do that right from the front panel, and it will automatically work just fine and take care of that remote control for you.
And I'm just showing exactly where that mode is on the ADX5D. I'll back out so we can do it. It's in device config. It's in ShowLink mode, and ShowLink mode is network.
That's right.
And then one sort of tricky thing that I discovered is you got to kind of assign the network ID.
Yep.
Make sure that those match.
Yeah, it comes default as there's a 4-digit like hexadecimal type of thing. So it goes up digits A through F, and then I think 0 through 9. It comes default as FFFF, which is not connected to anything. What Peter's talking about is if you go to that, you have to put a 4-digit code, if you will, that will let it link up to another ShowLink device broadcasting the same code. It's a hexadecimal thing, so I do stuff that's easy to remember, like beef, BEEF is a common one, or there's others as well that you can do. And then once that's set, you have to tell your AD610 what that code is. So
I do 1 2 3 4 because only an idiot would do 1 2 3 4.
That's my ATM code. Yeah, no. That's great. So once you get that set up, essentially, if you look at the AD610 and you go to properties, inside of here, you can do the ShowLink, and there'll be a network ID. And as you see here, Peter set it up as 1 2 3 4. And that means that any other ADX5Ds that also are set network ID 1 2 3 4 will show up as part of your stuff. So the network is actually, the ADX5D is wirelessly connected to the AD610 access point. The AD610 access point has an Ethernet cable to the greater network, and then it all shows up here in Workbench. So with that being said, now these can be treated just like a wired quad or a box, a rack mount box, and I can do all the fun stuff that I could with a box over the network. So I have complete control here. I'm looking at the ADX5D through Workbench over ShowLink wirelessly to these devices. So and if you're thinking if you have a few of these in a bag or in a rack mount kind of situation, you can configure your entire rack right from Workbench. Even without cables, even without being networked. They are networked together. It's just using the show link as part of that network.
If I grab one of the extra transmitters, I can pair it with the ADX5D.
Yeah,
It should pop up. And then you can change the transmitter frequency from Wireless Workbench. And just as a goofy bonus, you're doing it from 70 miles as the crow flies.
exactly. If you hold down the power button, you can get to the shortcut menu and do the sync features. It's just it'll bring up this quick menu, and you go up or down and do RX Sync 1 or RX Sync 2 with the up or down buttons.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, we put the most asked for functions like right there. So if you want to sync a pack, which is one of the easiest things, we put that right there in the quick menu, or the power button quick start menu, if you will. It's kind of a shortcut menu.
RX1 sync, searching. Success. Okay.
Cool.
You should see that pop up now in your Wireless Workbench.
I do. So it's popped up in Wireless Workbench here. As we see, the second ADX1 is online, and I see the ADX5D here. Of course, if I pop over to the monitor window, typically, during the event or show, and we can look at all the channel strips, and we'll see it populate here. We have both the ADX ones online. One is going through the quad, and one is going through the ADX5D itself. So you can kind of see it there in larger detail. As Peter was saying, now because I have ShowLink available, even on this ADX5D, I can do really cool stuff. I can change just about anything I want. If I go to properties and I go to radio, for example, I can change this and modify it if I want. I can also change the power. I can change just about anything you could on the front panel, the gain on the receiver. But really, the cool stuff here is in the transmitters menu. I see this transmitter is now registered. And just to kind of go over what's happening here, this link icon means it was synced and that the receiver knows that it belongs to this channel. Now, because it is ADX, anything I do with the receiver, even when this device is off, it will always follow the receiver. For example, if I go to a shoot and this is off with the battery out in my bag, and I do a frequency coordination, I choose a new frequency. When I turn this particular transmitter on, it'll wake up and go, oh, the receiver changed frequencies, I should as well, and it will follow the receiver.
So now we can see, a screen of you, Ben, your computer, and us in New York.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a fun thing to do would be to identify the device. So if I click this, the pack is now flashing. I'm telling it to identify that pack. This is useful if you have a whole bunch of packs out and you want to see which one is which at a glance. You can just click that and flash it. Maybe you're looking for a low battery or a specific one that you want to change. So that's a really, really nice feature. And through the power of ShowLink, I can do just about anything I want now. Through Workbench, through the access point, to the ADX5D, it's all part of the greater network. Another kind of way to visually see what's going on is if you go to the access point itself and you say properties, you can kind of see the connections that are happening here on my screen. So the two ADX ones are connected to the ShowLink access point, as well as the two ADX5Ds are now a client. They're not directly connected to the transmitters, but all the transmitters and the receivers are now connected through the single AD610 and becoming part of the network. And that allows us beautiful command and control of the entire setup here. That's pretty awesome.
I mean, look, this is a cool party trick, and we're doing it because we can do it. But there's real value in this, I think. In other words, I think like if you have a client that needs remote troubleshooting, you can set it up with a modem. A router like we did, so that you can remote in. You can do remote scans, like you can do a remote scan of our AD600 and see what the spectrum is without ever disturbing any of our receivers, all remotely. I think for our core audience, it's worth noting everything that you're doing 70 miles away can be done 7 feet away on a sound card. So that, it's we're showing this party trick, but it's also, it's got real advantages, and it doesn't have to be 70 miles away.
Yeah, speaking of which, I think why don't we do a frequency coordination just to show you kind of my process and my thought process of how we do this. So, as you know, the inventory tab with Workbench is really where you can make sweeping changes. I can set all my gains. I can select multiple items and set all the gains to the same thing, or do all that kind of stuff. Kind of like being in front of the front panel without being in front of the front panel. But the frequency coordination tab is really where we do the setup. Now, this is all an offline thing until I push or I choose to push to the devices. So I can do frequency coordinations during an event or before the event, and nothing actually takes place until I hit this button down here that says assign and deploy. But I like to explain this as a rule of three. So you need three things when you do a frequency coordination. It takes longer to talk about it than to actually do it. But the first thing, and you can do these in any order, is that you need to import the devices that you want to work with. So we can do that. We do need a frequency scan of some sort, either using one of the receiver channels or the AD600, which we have on the network, which we'll use here. And then the last thing is you need some FCC database information. And I can't stress the importance of this enough. Scans will get you so far. Finding open frequencies will get you so far, but really the FCC database is important in major metro areas, especially because of the public safety bans. These aren't readily apparent. It's not written on the device anywhere, and they change from city to city, but New York, Chicago, LA, major metro areas have public safety bans, which number one are illegal to operate on, and number two are intermittent. So you could set your show up or your shoot up and everything's fine, and then all of a sudden there's an emergency or something, and that gets a high power transmitter on the frequency that you chose, and you'll have a bad day. So let's do all those three things right now. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the frequencies from inventory. So if I go here to select frequencies from inventory, it'll bring up a little thing. Do I want all the frequencies and the coordinated frequency list? This is the one that's like on your 8600 as your backups, or manually select. I'm going to do all frequencies from inventory. And we notice immediately in the bottom left that the 4 channels from the 84Q quad have appeared. And then the 4 channels from the 2 different ADX5Ds have appeared. Great. So that's the first step. And then the second step is let's grab a scan. So I'm going to go over here to one of my devices. We'll use the 8600 because, as Peter mentioned, if you're using this during a shoot or a live event, this will not disturb your wireless that's actually receiving audio. So I'll choose 8600 and scan with one source and click that. And you can see just how fast the 8600 is. It's much faster than any of the other previous devices. And we're doing a wideband scan here. I think it goes all the way 174 up to 2000.
Yeah, I set it to the widest possible.
Yeah, I think default is up to 1000. So, but it's interesting. You can just really see what's going on here. And we're mainly interested in Axiom Digital. So we're looking at, 470 up to 608, or actually 616 with the little guard band there. But you can just see how much stuff is here right at Peter's location. There's quite a bit, even inside the building. What's also peculiar is that we see, I know just from experience, that the public safeties are down low, 14, 15, 16, and we see some activity happening here. And, if I do another scan, it'll probably be a little bit different than what it was previously. So we've done 2 out of the 3 things. The last thing is now to get that information into Workbench as far as FCC. Now, Workbench has a built-in database if you're offline and you don't have internet access, where it's just going to be, whatever Workbench found for the FCC at the time it was compiled. But we are online. So if I go to the Spectrum tab and I go to TV channels here and hit the little gear icon, it'll bring up a kind of a box where we can either put in a zip code, or we can search for an address or a latitude, longitude. This little green dot that says online frequency finder database shows that I'm online. If I didn't have internet connectivity, it would be off. But the beauty of this is that it will actually pull the daily updated information. So the zip code here for Gotham is 11106. I'm going to put that in. If you didn't know this, you could actually look it up by postal code, by city and state. But we know the zip code, so I'll put it in here and search for TV channels. And it quickly comes back and lets me know that all these ones that are checked are what the FCC says are active television stations in our area. And as we see, this public safety from 14, 15, and 16 here are just off limits. And those are going to be what we were talking about in New York, especially, that are not to be used. Anything with a check mark here, Workbench will automatically highlight in red in the next screen, and you'll see that those will be unavailable for use. So I'll just hit save. And as I mentioned, notice the red bars now. They may overlap with the blue bars as well, but this is what the FCC says are television stations in our area. Your mileage may vary. You may be inside a very well-shielded building and it'll be a red bar, but you don't see much happening there. Or like we mentioned earlier, 14, 15, 16 here, like these are all public safety off limits. And we do see some activity as well. So that kind of proves a point. You also may see like channel 23 here, this one highlighted. The FCC database shows there should be something there, but it looks pretty clean to me. So there could be some instances of that where it doesn't quite line up. But for the most part, what we're seeing in the scans by television station does correlate with the information from the FCC. If you're ever curious, after you do the zip code and the TV channels and the FCC thing here, you're curious what that station is, you can just hover your mouse over it, and it'll tell you what the actual TV station is. You can also click and exclude or include them with a right click, which is kind of a shortcut. For example, this 23, which looks like there's not much there, I can actually just right click and say exclude, and it'll turn it on or off. What's Workbench's thought process here is that anything that's highlighted in red, we're not going to put frequencies there. And anything highlighted in blue means that the energy is above this red line, which we call the exclusion threshold. And anything that peaks above that red line, we're not going to put a frequency there because it's too strong and we don't want to be there. But it takes longer to explain it than to actually do the workflow. Remember, the rule of threes is how I like to explain it. Your frequencies that you want to use, your scan information from a device that's local, or from the scan database. And then number 3 is lastly the FCC database. Once you have all 3 of those things checked in any order you want, you can just simply hit the calculate button here, and it'll roll the dice and come up with a frequency coordination. Every time I click that calculate button, it'll just sprinkle markers in any of those areas that are open and clean and free. So again, not in the red zone, and anything that's not in the blue zone. So every time I do it, it'll be a little bit different, and you can see those flags kind of shift around. Once I'm satisfied with that coordination and it looks okay to me, I can hit assign and deploy, and it'll bring up a little dialog here. As soon as I click this deploy all zones at the bottom here, it'll take that frequency coordination I made and push it all to that quad and the 2 ADX5D portables. So let's do that now, and we'll see a little blinky light show going on here. And there it is from many miles away. I did a frequency coordination, and we're good.
You also changed my my pack, because my pack is how we're hearing audio on the stream.
Oh, so
yeah.
So we changed Peter's pack in real time.
In
like,
real time.
Yeah. No pops, no clicks, none of that.
Nothing.
So that is the kind of the basis of a frequency coordination in a nutshell. Now, this is kind of the basic version. To take it a step further, if we want to employ the automatic frequency detection and avoidance, we have to do 2 things. We have to assign backup frequencies, which will live on that 8600 hardware. And we also have to enable the receivers to make that decision automatically. That's really the way to do it. So we'll keep our coordination here, but I'm going to mosey back on over to the inventory tab. And when I go back here, I will select all my receivers, and I'll do this all at one shot with either the shift or the control or the command on a Mac button. So I'm going to choose all my receivers. And under coordination, let's see, maybe I have to do here. So interference detection, there are 3 options. You can do interference avoidance mode, either manual, off, or automatic. Automatic is preferred. If not using that, then manual is what you want. Unregistered transmitter action means that if another Axiom digital is on my frequency, what do I do? And it may not be mine, it could be mine. There are three options here. You can either allow, just let it through. You can warn and give you a warning and let it through, or you can block. I personally like block, meaning that any other Axiom digital that I didn't infrared sync to my network and we don't know who it is, it's a kind of a bogey, then we're going to just get out of the way and move to a different frequency. And then this last option, the spectrum manager, this is useful if you are in, like, say, like a broadcast environment and you have multiple studios and each has a different spectrum manager, but they're on the same network. This will allow you to choose the specific spectrum manager you want to take the backup frequency information from. So this is typically not something you encounter every day. There might, like in this case, there's only one on the network right now. But if there were multiple, you can descriptively name them Studio A, Studio B, Studio C, and then just pick the one that you want to have serve out those frequencies. Anyway, I'll hit apply. And now those settings went to all four channels of this. And I'm going to do the ADX5D as well. And I'm going to interference detection do the same thing, automatic. I'm going to do a little block and the spectrum manager. So that's ready. It's loaded. It's in the hopper. If there's interference, these channels will automatically go to the new backup frequencies we're about to deploy. In the frequency coordination tab, we go back here. Normally, there's an option in Workbench, and I believe it's default, where it automatically will create backup frequencies. I typically turn that off because I like more control over it. So I'm going to show you the manual process of how to add it. Now, you could easily do it over here with the add frequencies and go through all this list of every option and then hit backup here. That's kind of the long way around the solution. The shortcut is to go over to the header of each of these devices, 86 G57 standard, and I right-click mouse on it, right mouse click, and I'll do backup frequencies, and I can add, like, say, 10 backup frequencies for these. And now we see 10 backup frequencies are in yellow. And the same thing I'll do on the ADX5D. You notice that they're in two different buckets here. One is ADG57 standard, and then the Axiom Digital portables are ADG57 plus. We could easily set them all the same. The difference being is the plus just uses the extra 2 megahertz between 614 and 616 that's available. With some caveats, you can't run over 10 milliwatt output power and no handheld frequency diversity operation. But they could be all the same if you wanted them to, if you're wondering why they're in two different buckets. If I had them on the same G57 for everything, then they would all be in the same list and we can share those same backup frequencies. So I just figured I'd explain that. I had those 10 backup frequencies, and now we notice that we have our same frequencies that are here, but now we have 10 backup frequencies for this frequency block and 10 backups for this. Again, I'll just roll the dice. Everything else hasn't changed. My FCC data from the TV channels and my scan have not changed. So I can just hit calculate, and it's going to come up with a solution for 28 frequencies. Down here we see 28 out of 28, and everything is cool. So we have a new solution. We just haven't pushed it out yet. If I hit assign and deploy, it's going to deploy everything not only to the channels that we're working with on air, but it's also, more importantly, going to deploy the backup frequencies to the spectrum manager. And the report here shows that we did the 8 frequencies to active channels, or the receivers in use. And then we have 20 backup frequencies, which now live and breathe on that spectrum manager. So I'm going to close this out, and to visually see what's going on here. Now, even if we disconnected Workbench and it was offline, the system is loaded and ready to go in case of an interference event. If there was another transmitter that came on one of these frequencies, it's going to hop out of the way and change frequencies to one of the backups. I think a common misconception is that, well, Axiom just changes frequencies to whatever it wants. That's not really the case. You predetermine what the frequency pool is. And what happens is that when there is a problem, the receiver is the one that knows it has a problem, raises its hand and says, hey, I can't hear my transmitter. I'm getting stepped on. Please help. The spectrum manager has those backup frequencies that you've already determined. Like, these are the sandbox where I can only go to these frequencies. And not only that, but during the event or the show, it's been looking at all those frequencies and ranking them from cleanest to worst. And it will serve out the cleanest frequency that it has, and it'll swap places. So the bad frequency goes back into the frequency server, and the good frequency goes to the receiver, because the receiver changed through the magic of show link, the transmitter changes, and it happens in a tenth of a second. You won't even notice it.
Couple questions. One of them is, this is maybe an issue with the internal apps, but when you open Scan Inventory, it gives you a login for Shure internal apps.
Yes.
Is this correct? It sounds like it's an internal beta environment instead of the production environment.
It should be a production environment. And I'll be honest with you, like I was having a little trouble here opening it up from Workbench itself. There is if you go directly to the website itself, which is scans.shure.com, you can go and create your Shure account if you haven't, and then log in, and you should be online and ready to go. So check out here. It's just a web browser, scans.shure.com, and you should be able to either use your existing Shure account or log in with a new account. If you still have problems that persist, please let me or our applications team know, and we'll take a look at what's going on there for you.
That's great. And then another question, can you only upload scans done through Wireless Workbench, or can you do them through other scanners like RF Explorer or WYSICOM?
That's a great question. I think you can do more than just Wireless Workbench. I haven't tried it personally, but the upload just chooses a file, and I think I'd have to look into that further. I don't know. I want to say yes, but I have to check further on that. You should be able to. As you know, Workbench 7 also kind of increased the compatibility with a lot of importing scans from CSVs and other sources, including RF Explorer and others. So you should be. It should be possible to do so.
You might have to use Wireless Workbench as a gearbox
to convert it. Cool. Any more questions? Yeah.
Yeah, this is kind of an interesting one. On the frequency map, are you able to see the name of who published the public scan and then see their other scans?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't know.
Talking.
Let's take a look.
Where have they been?
Let's take a look. I did one at the I did one at the convention center for NAB when we were beta testing this before it was out, and my name is definitely in there. So we're going to take a look and see what's up with that. I think it's here. Yeah. See, Las Vegas Convention Center on NAB 416. Gotham was there. We were hanging out. And I was at the booth doing a scan during setup, and I see my name, but I don't see a thing to put all the other scans that person has done. So I think that would be a cool feature request. I can relay that to the team. Why not? That'd be kind of fun to see what somebody else has done or how much they've contributed, and top 100 contributor or those type of metrics. I think that's neat. I'll relay that to the team. I like that. Thank you. Keep those ideas coming. We're here for you, and this is all about making your workflow and your life easier. So yeah, I love those suggestions. That's wonderful.
We had another one, but I think we covered it when using the Spectrum Manager. It's also a good idea to set up preferences to calculate backup channels.
To kind of extrapolate on that point, what I was talking about in Mac, it's preferences under the Workbench menu. In Windows, it's tools preferences. But if you get into like the nuts and bolts here and you go to the coordination, this first option on the top says automatically calculate backup frequencies. And you can do that if you wish. And that's, I think when you install it from a fresh install, that is automatically selected and it will automatically calculate backups for you. I usually don't use it personally because I like more granular control and I can tell it how many backups I want. But that's where that setting is. And just remember the right click on the header, add backup frequencies, and the type in the number is the easiest way.
Ben, is there a way to get Wireless Workbench to only feed frequencies within a certain band? Like if you, let's say you're using filtered antennas or you're in an environment where you're kind of doing band planning and you only want it to have frequencies, let's say on the lower part of the UHF spectrum or the higher part.
Absolutely. And this is one of if you're getting into RF coordination, one of the most powerful features of Workbench and one of the things that you should be using all the time. A very common solution is for in-ear monitors. And best practices say that you should keep your in-ear monitors separate in a block versus your other wireless. And the reason being is that if you kind of pack them together, then any intermodulation products that they make will be stayed contained versus intermingling your mics and your IEMs together. It just makes for a cleaner type of coordination, and you're able to get more frequencies on air. So this is kind of best practices 101 for RF coordination. The way we accomplish this is from a feature in Workbench called inclusion groups. And I can show you this. This inclusion group stuff is really powerful. It's really, if I'm doing an event or a show that has in-ear monitors and in wireless, I'm always using inclusion groups. It's like one of the first things I set up. So what we do is we create these inclusion groups over in the Spectrum tab. And if you hit the gear icon here, you can say a couple options. But at the bottom, the inclusions list, it says account for inclusions list. And we go manage. Now, I don't have a list set up here. We're going to make a new one. So I'll hit a list. You can call it whatever you want, Gotham. And then I'll do 2 groups under that list. And I'll call the first one, say, microphones. And the second one I'll call in-ear monitors, or IEM. And for the in-ear monitors, I'll just pick a starting range of, say, 500 to 530 or something like that. Just, I know that I'm maybe using G50, and that'll be kind of in that pocket and outside of the public safety. Not that it matters, Workbench won't put them there anyway. But then we teach this a lot in our RF classes, but if you take the delta between the first number and the last number, like 500 to 530, that's 30 megahertz. If I add 30 megahertz on top of that last number, so 530 plus 30 is 560. As long as my other things start above 560, they'll be outside the intermod range. And this is just kind of a mental, not higher math or anything, but a kind of a way that I like to approach it. So I will select my microphones inclusion group, and now I will start at 560. And I know that these systems go all the way up to 608. So I'll do 608. So once we're satisfied with that, we hit save. And I have 2 inclusion groups now set up. Next step is to assign my devices and save this. And I can do this a couple different ways, but I think if we go to right click again on the banner, you can do it from here. Additionally, if I go to inventory, you can assign it there as well. But let me, I'll right click on the banner and I'll go to move to inclusion groups. And now we have 2 options, mics and IEMs. So I'll do mics for this one. And now they're all going to be mics, and I'll do mics for this one. And we mentioned earlier at the start of this session that we can do other devices and things that are virtual or not online. And that's what I'll do now. I'm gonna add a few channels of PSM for IFB or inner monitor, whatever you're using it for. And there's other manufacturers you could do if you wish. But I'm going to do Shure, and I know the model is going to be the P10T, so we'll look for that. PSM 1000. And then we're going to do G50, or let's see, G10 actually, sorry. And then the zone is default, but the inclusion group I can set up right here into IEM as primary. So let's add, like, I don't know, 4 channels of that. And as soon as I do that, they will be in the list now, and we'll be good to go. If I hit calculate, what we'll see is that everything remaining the same. I still got my FCC data, my backup frequency information, and all that. But it will it'll try to put the in-ear monitors in the same inclusion group that I asked it for. So, for example, we said 500 to 530. You notice that all these frequencies are in that same range, where the rest of them are now, in a different range. So. The other thing, too, is that you can move the coordination order up or down. And by moving the coordination order, you can kind of select, how it's going to work or how it's going to do each one. Let's see here. So inclusion groups is a great way of doing the separate for the IEM and the microphones, and I encourage that. Now, if you're not after that, you just kind of want to put them in a pocket, you can make a kind of a global inclusion group a few different ways. The easiest way is going into Spectrum, and then you can go to TV channels. And that list that we looked at again from the FCC, you can just click on or off all of the television stations where you don't want to put microphones and just keep a certain pocket if you wish. Or as Peter mentioned, if you're doing if you're using a filtered antenna that has a specific frequency block, you can specify in additional exclusions a range of right here where not to play. Say, exclude all this stuff and don't put microphones in these ranges, and you can kind of make a real narrow window of where you like to put those and so forth. So that's, I guess, two different ways to approach it. One's an inclusion thing, especially if you're using ears and mics at the same time. And the other one's kind of a global exclusion. If you want to just say, hey, play in this little neighborhood here, and that's it.
Very, very cool. We covered a lot more than I thought we would in Wireless Workbench. Joe, any other questions? Are we caught up?
Eric says, Providence on wireless scans with ranking reliability submitters sounds like a great idea. Thumbs up. He also says frequency coordinating from long distances. Wowza. Which is, just wanted to say that.
Cool.
And then one more is, with the discussion around the P100, it'd be really nice if Shure created an Axient class IEM, even if still analog, that supports ShowLink and all the other AD goodies.
That would be really cool. Yeah, we do get asked for that quite a bit. I think people expect it from us. We're doing all this cool stuff with Axient, and why could we do it with ears? All I can say is we're always working on new and exciting things. So stay tuned. I can't confirm or deny. So.
Does the scan library have like a heat map showing how old or new a scan is?
I don't necessarily. That's a great question. I think a heat map would be a cool
or like a color code, you know.
That's really great. I love the heat map idea. I know it's in chronological order, so the newest scans will be shown first because that's probably what you're interested in. You don't care about a scan, from 5 years ago. You want to pivot over to the other kind of cool thing we've been talking about?
Again, this isn't necessarily new for Wireless Workbench 7 by any means. This is because Shure publishes a open API that anybody can use. So what is StreamDeck for people that haven't seen it?
Sure. So you might be familiar with StreamDeck. StreamDeck is pretty popular. It's kind of a button-based display. So there's actually an LCD panel, and there's assignable buttons, and you can do things as the name implies. Streamers are very popular with it. You could set up macros for editing photos, or like if you're using a Zoom call like this one, you can say exit or mute your mic. Look at that. So Gotham is using it here. There's StreamDeck, and this is the newer model that has actually some encoders in the bottom as well. I think they make about 4 or 5 different ones at this time, all the way from like a 6-button to a medium to this large one to the one with the encoders. And normally how it works is that StreamDeck is made by a company called Elgato, and they have a software that's it's from Elgato. It's the official software. You install it on your Mac or PC, and you assign the buttons any way you like. And there's presets for just about almost every program out there. However, there is an open source, free, community-based project that's called BitFocus Companion. And what they've done is they've taken the StreamDeck hardware, and without using the official Elgato software, you're allowed to repurpose it to control a lot of broadcast equipment, including Shure. There are many other manufacturers out there. The list is very long. And if you can think about it and the manufacturer opens up the API, you can push a button and have it do anything. Focusing on the Shure integration with it, because as Peter mentioned, we publish our API for it and the hooks over TCP/IP. I found some of our larger users using this as kind of a monitoring tool first and foremost. So, for example, you have a large show or event, and you do have Workbench running, but you want a dedicated piece of hardware that's showing you your money channels at all times and what's going on with it. For example, 30 seconds before the talent is about to walk out and go live, you want to make sure their mic is on and it's got good battery and the RF is there. So you can look down at the StreamDeck and see a snapshot of what you want to do. Now, you can take it deep down the rabbit hole and geek out and push a button and have it mute a channel or change frequencies or change gain and all that stuff. But it's really however you want to make it. For the low price of whatever StreamDeck hardware, which you may already have, you can repurpose it and have it do cool things with Shure. So I'll show you how to set it up. It's really, once you learn like how it works, it's not that difficult to do. You need to go first and foremost, download the free software from BitFocus Companion and install that on your system. I'm not going to show you how to do that because that's pretty basic. It works on Mac, PC, Linux, Raspberry Pi. You can dedicate a Raspberry Pi computer as just doing that, it powers the StreamDeck. And what we're looking at here is a StreamDeck plugs in via USB to a computer of some kind, or Pi, and the other portion of it, your Ethernet, will plug in to the other side of the computer and connect it to your network. That network will be connected with all your Shure devices that we were looking at with Wireless Workbench. And it is recommended that you do set up static IPs so that whenever you reboot or the system goes offline online, you maintain that connectivity and you know where each device is. But the workflow after you get the program installed is the same. So there's a little server running on your computer. Now, keep in mind, you can't run the Elgato software and Companion at the same time. You have to choose one or the other. So on this computer, on mine, I have turned off the Elgato software. I have both, and I'm only using Companion. But if we look at the screen share, my screen share here, and I go to Companion, it'll bring up this little box, and this is common on all platforms. So you choose the interface you want to use, which I'm using the interface we're using for the VPN because I want to control Peter's devices, and then I launch the GUI, and it's all administered right from this web page, which is really, really cool. So when you start it up, it's going to be a blank slate. And again, you can do this even without a StreamDeck attached because there's a nice emulator function, which I'll show you. So it's kind of showing you a virtualized piece of the hardware. But the first step is make your connection with the Shure device. So I know what my device IP is. If I go back to Wireless Workbench here in the inventory tab, I look right here, and the quad is on 192.168.100.82, and that's the static that Peter picked for this. So armed with that knowledge, I will add a connection right here in the connection. You can see there's just a bunch, like hundreds and hundreds of different manufacturers that are somebody taken the time to write the code for. And you just type in Shure, and there's a whole bunch of Shure stuff that's available, including some of our ceiling array microphones and P300 processors and whatnot. But we're interested, of course, in Axient Digital. And this works with SLXD and up, SLXD, QLXD, ULXD, and Axient Digital currently. I hit add. Now, over here, this connection, I can name it something. So I can name it something descriptive. I prefer like 84Q, and maybe I'll do 1, just if I have multiples so I know which one is. We know what the target IP is because we just looked at that. So 192.168.100. Oops, I get my typing right. 192.168.100.82. I know it's a Axient Digital quad, so I'll tell it that. And then the only other thing I recommend maybe you change is that the metering interval is in usually 5,000 milliseconds or 5 seconds. I usually knock it down to about a second just to have a little bit, quicker updates, and I save it. It'll go over here in connections and it'll show you that the status is now enabled and everything is cool and that we can have connectivity to it. It's happy and everything's great. So the next thing is to set up our StreamDeck the way we want it. If you go over to surfaces and you have a physical device connected like I do, I have a XL model here and it found it. That's cool. But even if you don't, if you're just playing around at home with your own Axient, you can just use the emulator that's built in, and I'll show you. But you make sure that's all set up and you go to buttons. And now we're looking at a visual representation of the StreamDeck that's blank. I'll pick the first button and create a button over here. And there are different actions you can do, meaning when I push the button, do this. And then there's different feedbacks, meaning just give me the information from the device. We're going to set up the feedback first because we want to see a channel strip. So click on feedbacks, the little folder icon. Now all the connections will show up here, including 84Q1. Remember, I named it descriptively. So just click on that. And there's a whole bunch of stuff you can pick. You can roll your own or just have a specific parameter.
Ben, I want to make one that somebody on a sound cart might use and
Sure.
also live dangerously.
Sure, sure.
Do you is one of the actions exposed? Is it to RF mute my transmitter?
There's a channel mute. I'm not sure if you can mute the transmitter. There might be. We'll take a look at it in a second. We'll do that, absolutely. But the out of all these ones, it took. I started when I first just diving into this. I just started rolling my own, and like you can go crazy and make your own. But I think there's a gentleman named Thomas. I haven't met him personally, but he did all this programming, and he made this channel status display. If you click on this, it's a one-click button, and if I do that, check out this button now. I'll bring it up on the emulator so we can see it in larger detail. But in a nutshell, this is my Stream Deck. I'm getting like everything. I'm getting the channel, the frequency, the model. I see your battery's low, so you
Yeah.
probably
Oh,
need to change
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Full RF and audio that's passing through right on that button. So this emulator here, even if you don't have a Stream Deck connected, shows you exactly the visual thing of what the Stream Deck is. If you're looking at my camera itself, that button is exactly how it looks right here, of course. So it's the same thing, and it's in real time. And now this is set up for life until I break it, so you can keep that. If you have static IP set, it's not going to change and nothing's going to happen. But as Peter was mentioning, yeah, that's cool and all, but let's do something where like we go the other way around. So if I go to actions, the first thing I'll do is I'll do press actions, and then there's a release action. But a press action, I'll do this, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that's built in. As far as muting goes, you can mute or unmute the channel. I don't believe that muting the transmitter slot is enabled at this time. But just for fun, I'm going to do flashlights on receiver, and I'll hit done, and we're all set up. So now we're on the super view here. If I press physically on this button from 70 miles away, Peter's device will flash, and I can do cool stuff like that. There's like gain up or down and mute channel and other things.
The rotary model, you could totally do gain up and down on the rotary knob.
Yep.
There's an easy way to do that. I did come across the BitFocus server can be a button in the Elgato software.
Yes.
It's a little clumsy, which is why I think you and I both probably avoid it. I prefer to be natively BitFocus.
Correct.
Just easier.
You can use it as a plugin for Elgato. If you're running the Elgato software, you can use it, a couple buttons of companion with that if you're already invested until you set up your Stream Deck with Elgato. But as Peter mentioned, for what we're doing here or this kind of usage, I kind of go all in with companion because I think a dedicated device is great just to have a piece of hardware. I look down and at an instant, I know what's going on. Even without Workbench open or you don't have room on your sound card, maybe you get the little 6-button display and you're running on like a Raspberry Pi or something. You got an always on display of what's happening with your microphones at all times and just kind of glance over and make sure everything's cool. I think that's where the value is for me. It's kind of a cool party trick, and you can do other things, but it's just an always on remote, in my case, very remote status display of what's happening here in Queens. So
yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of share that because like it seems a little daunting at first if you don't know how to set it up, but once you set it up, it's pretty easy.
Yeah, super easy, and even I was going to say even the Pi, they give you an image. You just a free software. That's the other thing is the Pi cost a little bit of money. They're starting to roll out again,
Sure.
which is nice. You don't have to use the Elgato Stream Deck, but I think it's better that way. But this is all relatively inexpensive. And it ties into a theme that I did want to address sort of as we come to wrapping this stuff up. Kudos to Shure and all the manufacturers that really open up their APIs and allow end users to really dig in and come up with customized solutions that work for them. Even the VPN that we're using is we're on the OpenVPN, which is open source. It was free to assign a client. We happen to be using PepWave routers, but there's open source router firmware that you can use that will do the same thing. So I really encourage people to do this, and this is kind of why I get so excited about hosting these Gotham labs. And I appreciate everybody that stayed with us. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, there's one that jumps back a little bit. In terms of switching to backup channels, how does the system handle people going out of range versus frequencies interfering from the outside?
Oh, that's a great question. So it does know if it goes out of range versus frequencies on the outside. For example, if there's not a transmitter on and it's not active and there's no link, like for example, a broadcast facility that transmitters are off during the nighttime and the receivers are left on 24/7, it's not just going to sit there and change frequencies over and over until it kind of knows what's going on. So it actually detects an interference event, and I think the internal algorithm of the software, or actually the receiver itself, is basically I have a transmitter. and then now I have RF energy and it's not mine and I can't hear my transmitter and there's actually energy coming in, that's an interference event. If I just keep going down, 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 down and like kind of walk out of range and so forth, that's not going to be considered an interference event, unless there's like extra noise or some other transmission coming on top of the channel. So, I mean, really no harm in switching frequencies, but to kind of just avoid it, just switching frequencies and determining them as not good. There's this threshold, much like that red line that we see in Workbench that's called the exclusion threshold. You set an exclusion threshold in the device or the hardware itself. It's default. Whatever you make that red line in Workbench, when you push the backup frequencies to the server, it makes that the threshold. So not only does it have to be interference detected, but whatever interference is has to poke over that line in order to be considered an interferer, and then it moves out of the way.
And there's also that element of quality, right? That it's decoding data, and it knows whether the decoding data is a result of too much RF energy or whether it's just not able to get the data through.
Exactly. Yeah, the purple Q meter is extremely important, and one of the reasons that we put it in there, because you have the RF, is it the right RF? Without that meter, and you have a full RF signal going on, you have no real way of knowing if that's yours or somebody else's, or you're getting stepped on at that moment. But the receiver knows, and it will trigger that, hey, I need help. There's interference. You get the pop-up on Workbench and on the front panel, and if we did what we did on this webinar here, then it'll change it automatically with all the right stuff.
And who sets that red line? Is that adjustable, or is that just stock?
That's a great question. So it's adjustable. In Workbench itself, it comes at -85 as the default. When you are actually in Workbench, you can move that red line up or down. So if I go to my Workbench instance here under frequency coordination, this red line, I can either grab it with my mouse and move it up or down, and it's interactive. So again, if I put it in the noise floor, that's not right, because everything will be not usable. And if I put it too high, then the other way around, like let's say a lot of stuff is usable, but I may get interfered with some of these other little spikes. So the name of the game is that 85 is usually a pretty good default, as we see, but I like to put it just above the majority of the noise floor here, but not in it. And that will give you a nice balance of excluding stuff that's active and giving you the best bang. But that goes into when I push that frequencies over to the spectrum manager, that's where it goes, and that value will be put there. If you want to change that value after you've already put out your frequencies, you can just go to the spectrum manager, to the properties, and here you can change that number to whatever you want, and you can kind of massage it. Maybe the noise floor changed for some reason. Monitor threshold right here at the bottom is where you can change that. And we notice it's -85 is default. I typically, if I needed to change that, I'd probably just do a new coordination anyway, especially if you're rocking show link, which you probably are. You do a coordination and you can push new frequencies out and not have to sync the transmitters. Take you 2 seconds. So.
Amazing. Ben, thank you so much. Is there anything before we sign off that you want to add?
No, I just, we really appreciate all the support. Accent Digital keeps adding new stuff, and Workbench, we keep adding new stuff. And if you think of something or these features, I wrote some down, the heat map and, names based on scan, please let us know. That's what we're here for. We want to make this stuff better for you. And we're always trying to improve it and see how we could do better. So it's people like on this call and the community itself in Gotham that kind of makes everything the best it can be and lives that dream of making the perfect wireless device for your gigs and such. So we really appreciate it, and I'm excited to be here. Thanks for all your support.
Thank you, Ben, and thanks to everybody that watched, and Joe, thank you, and Jared, thank you, and all the crew here, and yeah, keep your ideas coming. I love doing this stuff, and yeah, thanks. I hope to see everybody soon. Thanks for watching.